Hey, Burns, what's on your mind today?
Dick, I'm pissed off. I'm
Well,
I'm sick and tired of what's going on at the southern border and tangentially to the invasion of the Haitians. I'm annoyed that unvetted Afghans are being transplanted all over the country. Uh, the federal government and Joe Biden in particular, and Harris, you remember she's supposed to be the vice president, are not doing a damn thing to protect the security and, frankly, what little wealth there's left after taxes of the American people. And most notably, in allowing the southern border to be wide open and unvetted Afghans to be repopulated throughout the country. They're showing absolute hypocrisy with their COVID mandates, because these people, not only a fairly significant percentage are coming to the country with COVID, but they're coming with tuberculosis, they're coming here with measles, they're coming here with a number of diseases. And all this represents, when you look at what, at least until today, was that huge population of the unwashed under that bridge in Del Rio, Texas. And we'll talk why I say until today. Those people are being sent all over the country, and in every way, shape, and form, we're going to have to pay for them because they're unskilled, they're illiterate, and they have no reason to be here under federal law. And why are they here? They're here to become stupid Democratic voters. You know, the kind of people that voted for a guy that never got out of his basement, and on the rare moments he did talk, didn't make any sense. That's where we're at in this country.
well, yeah, but I understand the Del Rio Bridge thing is solved because 14,000 Haitians have disappeared.
I think it was called, well, no, you'll know because we're the same age. Remember that little cheap toy that you could draw on, and then you just lift the plastic screen and it would disappear?
Yeah, Sketchupad.
Sketchupad, okay. That's what just happened with all the Haitians. I mean, all we've seen is photos, video clips. Of course, that is until Biden didn't allow the press to fly drones over that bridge any longer. Because, and I don't know why he did that, because God knows the legacy media wasn't showing us anything anyway. But these people just, boom, they're gone. And what the Biden administration is trying to tell us is, well, we shipped them all back to Haiti. That's bullshit. They've been commandeering buses. That's a fancy word for stealing. They even attacked a flight crew on a plane that was taking single male Haitians back to Haiti. But the vast majority, and in particular, any Haitian with a wife, children, is in this country. And they've been relocated to different cities, different states. I would imagine mostly to red states that they're trying to turn blue in years to come. But they're here. And I don't like it. And that's got nothing to do with systemic racism. any more than if we said tomorrow, we're committed to a plan and we'll fund it to move every single person in the third world to America because it's the right humanitarian thing to do. I mean, we can't do it. But that's what the liberals believe. And that's what the addled mind of Joe Biden believes. And that's what the UN is encouraging him to do. God, even the Pope, who just put up vaccine passports to enter the Vatican, is telling world leaders to do. You must take migrants. It's the Christian thing to do. Well, how many migrants are bedded down in the Vatican? I mean, that's a little bit, secondary to the principal topic today, but it's indicative of this endemic liberal thought process that really screws the American citizen, or maybe better put, depreciates the value of American citizenship. I mean, as we sit here, Dick, compared to what we were when we were born in 1947, in terms of our value, real and perceived to this country, it's almost non-existent. The only thing we're good for is to raise a military and to be taxed through the nose to keep the elites in power. Other than that, they don't care about our security. It's open season at the border. It's defund the police, and on it goes. I mean, California, Newsom won his recall election. You know, the first thing he did in the first 24 hours after he won, he passed 3 bills in California that eliminate statewide all residential zoning. You can put apartment buildings into what once were residential neighborhoods. You can build second homes if you have enough room in your backyard. It's all about density and providing housing. And it's mostly about providing housing in their efforts to get the people who are sleeping on the streets and all the illegal aliens they're allowing into all their sanctuary cities. I mean, if you look at California, you can understand how Biden thinks. Anyways, and I'm fed up.
You
I'm
still
passing
there?
the ball back to you, Dick.
No, I just find the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. I think the one that got me most is that Biden has now outlawed the use of horses to control crowds. And, that's been done for hundreds of years. New York is a prime example. They use horseback riot breaker-upper whatever's for everything.
Yeah, well,
There's that. But, the other thing that gets me is taxes. We're taxed on what we earn. We're taxed on what we pay into Social Security. In other words, we pay it in, we get it back, and we're taxed on it.
no, you said one thing wrong there. We don't get back what we put into Social Security.
Well, no, but did I say that? I didn't mean to say that. What I'm saying is we're forced to pay into Social Security, and then we're taxed when we take what we put in ours and we take it out. And then we got all the rest of the taxes. It's incredible. The bottom line is we're taxed on what we're taxed on what we're taxed.
That's right. At every turn. And now, thanks to Joe Biden and and I'm looking at all of you out there, the Biden voters who shouldn't get off the hook, who have accountability, we're taxed due to runaway inflation. We're right back into the Carter years. And I don't know how many Americans, when I listen to college age students now on almost any topic, they can't converse about it. They're just parrots who parrot what their professors say. Systemic racism, inclusion. But you ask them to talk about what is inflation and how does it affect you? I don't think too many of them could articulate that. We're being taxed at the grocery store. We're being taxed at the gas pump. Virtually every product and service in this country, prices are now going up, and in some instances, going up mercurially. And that's a tax. And it's a tax because salaries and hourly wages are not keeping a pace with inflation. And God knows, to your point, Social Security isn't. I mean, it hardly covers my prescriptions.
Yeah, well, the sad point is we're at the point, and now I'm speaking as an economist, that if we raise the minimum wage, say to 15, which I think people are talking about, not only will it further screw up the distribution of income, but it's more inflationary. So you raise pay, it's going to raise prices.
Well, let me give you another corollary, Dick, of what's happening with Afghans coming into the country, Haitians coming into the country, Latin Americans, South Americans coming into the country at will. I mean, they're not being stopped. Greg Abbott of Texas and the governor of Arizona are trying to stop them with various means from the National Guard and so forth. But they're still virtually coming in at will. And those costs that will, as American citizens, incur, let me give you a statistic. And this was just out this week, although I've heard this previously. But as we speak, 61% of adult Americans do not pay one nickel in federal income taxes. Now, we have today about a $23 trillion debt with the infrastructure bill and the human infrastructure bill, if they're passed, will be up approaching 30 trillion. And now, with 6 out of every 10 Americans not paying a nickel, no skin in the game, we're taking on huge additional burdens, and it's all falling on you and me and the people that have always paid their taxes and paid their bills on time and tried to run a household budget that made sense and not overextend their credit and tried to be prudent in their purchases. And what do we get for it? Not a goddamn thing. We may retain a good credit rating, but our money's going out the door. For people who are illiterate in their own language, illiterate in their country of origin, now we're going to sit them down in classrooms, and that'll be a cost. And with emergency rooms overrun, they'll be taking their kids with the sniffles to emergency rooms, and that's a cost to us. And on it goes. I mean, it's just beyond the pale. It defies common sense. What about the people that followed the law to get into this country? If I'm correct, I believe right now we allow about 1 million people to immigrate to the United States through what I'll call legal channels. I mean, you may be able to express that better than I, but believe it or not, there are still people that do it legally. Well, what must those people think that sit and wait and fill out all the paperwork and pay all the fees and, dearly want to be Americans versus the hundreds of thousands that come into this country and are never going to assimilate, are never going to contribute. And what's it say about we Native Americans? As I said earlier, with each and every day that passes, particularly under Joe Biden, the notion of American citizenship depreciates like the US dollar.
But getting back to the financial thing, another thing that irritates me is that the people you talk about, we don't help. We've got veterans living on the street. We got people in Appalachia that can't get health care because most of the employers have gone out of business or something else. Doesn't one think that those people should be taken care of first?
Absolutely. I've seen Appalachia, and I won't list them, but I've driven through some ghettos in major cities. I can think of Cleveland, the Huff in Cleveland. I've been in the ghetto in Detroit. I mean, it's one thing to talk about welfare queens and men who refuse to work. Well, set that aside. Look at the kids. Look at the classrooms they go to. And by the way, do they have school choice? Not under the Democrat regime. I mean, it's really sad, but do we stop other than on the campaign trail when we lie to these folks? Do we stop and assess what we need to do to genuinely help them? No, we're too busy smuggling Haitians into the country. And I keep saying Haitians. It could be people from any poor country. So I'm not singling out Haitians per se. It's the whole idea of allowing people in. And by the way, does it take a rocket scientist to figure out, if you know geography, that 15, 20,000 Haitians didn't just get from Haiti to Del Rio, Texas, without vast logistical help from deep pocket elites who are trying to transform our country and trying to further buttress the Democratic Party because it's the party of rabid liberals? How did all those people get to Del Rio, Texas? Weren't you in logistics in the U.S. Army for a while, Dick, among your assignments?
Yes.
Well, then you know what I'm talking about. And I spent a career in logistics. But, I'm sure there's some people think that Haiti must be 20 miles south of, El Paso. I mean, the state of education today, I'm sure, there are college kids that don't know where Haiti is. And God knows they probably couldn't find Afghanistan if you put a globe in front of them.
Ah, well, it's true, but part of this goes back to a term that I learned somewhere, Christian something or other. But anyways, it goes into the American psyche where, we still have those Carterites who want to make the whole world a big democracy, which he proved wouldn't happen. And it sure as hell didn't work in Afghanistan. But then you've also got this feeling, I don't know if it's out of guilt or what, psychologically, but, we have to take care of all these people. And the bottom line is, yeah, it'd be nice if we could, but we can't because, as you pointed out, we can't even take care of our own.
Well, speaking of taking care of our own, Dick, how about the thousands of Americans still stranded in Afghanistan because instead of getting them out, evacuating them before we pulled out our armed forces, Biden just pulled out our armed forces and left them to, the caprice of the Taliban. I mean, he goes before the cameras today and he flat lies that Border Patrol agents on horseback are whipping Haitians. The photographer who took the iconic picture of the Border Patrol on horseback in the past week has already been interviewed and said that Biden is lying through his teeth, that they weren't whipping Haitians or charging over them on horseback. I mean, that's just a bold-faced lie. So, but Biden had to go before the cameras today. A week ago, he disallowed drones. Now he's taking horses away from the Border Patrol. The people under the bridge in Del Rio have magically disappeared, but the Americans in Afghanistan are still there.
Well, yeah, but one of the problems about Afghanistan is the majority of those Americans could have gotten out if they gotten off their butt, but a lot of them were married to Afghanistani women, and they decided up until now that they wanted to stay. Point number one. Point number two, when you go and you live in a foreign country, you're required, or you're supposed to, report into the embassy with your address, emergency numbers, and everything else. And when you move, you're supposed to tell them. That never happened. Three, a lot of the people never turned in the basic information to the embassy, and when they moved, they never did. So, I really hate to say it, but those that are, quote, trapped are trapped due to their own lack of whatever.
Well, all I can say is I've heard otherwise, and you don't have to accept, what I'm telling you, but from multiple sources, that those cards were completed. And as part of the Biden negotiation with the Taliban, many of those cards were turned over to the Taliban, and now they're going house to house searching for Americans, and God only knows what's happening to them.
Okay, that's entirely possible. But the bottom line is they were given enough time. Now, of course, that begs the point of why did we take the military out first? When in fact, I think from a military standpoint, they should have been taken out last. That would have solved a lot of the issues. But that isn't what happened. So you got to deal with where you are now. And the bottom line is, I believe that they could have gotten out, and some are getting out even today due to private ex-military personnel and everything else that are running kind of an underground railroad.
Yeah, well, okay, to that point, I know that there are uh, civilians who are, using private jets and so forth, and uh, in engaging operatives to find Americans and to get them out. And they're doing a better job than the Biden administration.
Well, that's true.
My point may not have been entirely accurate. I'm the first to say that, but I think it is fair to say that if you're trying to cross the southern border and you don't have a dollar in your pocket, or you're a poverty-stricken American, or somebody who's sleeping on the streets of San Francisco, you're low on the totem pole in terms of the prioritization. What this Democratic Party is all about is bringing people in from typically very poor countries with low job skills. And as I said, most who are illiterate in their own language from their country of origin. And that's going to make America great? Well, I don't think so. And it's not any form of racism to stand up and say this isn't right. For one thing, it defies current federal law on the books. I mean, anything I've said, it is consistent with federal law. But Biden and the Democrats write their own laws. I'm just, I'm beyond annoyed. And I'll say this too. I'm not saying that Biden voters should be drawn and quartered, but I also don't think that they should just disappear out of the minds and view of Americans who voted otherwise and get a pass and have no culpability, because in so many areas, think about our oil independence as an example. In the space of just 9 months, the whole thing's gone topsy-turvy. If Biden in one area of his responsibility had screwed up, well, then we can say, he's human. But you can't find a Democrat that can legitimately articulate one good thing the man's done, other than eat an ice cream cone. And I bet he drips it all over his suit.
Well, what can I say? I agree with you. I'm irritated. It's just that I see this wave of activity happening, and I don't think there's a damn thing we can do in the short run. In the long run, maybe. But if we wait until the long run, we're going to go to hell in a handcart.
Well, to your point, everyone, I am not a registered Republican. I'm an independent. And just for anybody watching this podcast who thinks I'm a total partisan, again, I'm not a member of the Republican Party. I don't contribute to the Republican Party. I contribute to some of their candidates. But there are Republican governors, plural, and not 2 or 3, closer to 10 or 12, who have advised the Biden administration that their arms are wide open to accept Afghan refugees. Well, you tell me I'm wrong here, Dick. If an Afghani was working in concert, let's say with the US Army, in our 20-year war. And if we abandoned that individual and his family, they were sure to be slaughtered by the Taliban. I'm not saying directly or between the lines that they shouldn't be relocated out of the country. But nobody's going to tell me that the plane loads of Afghanistans going out on those huge military transport planes in which it was more than 90% unvetted Afghans and a sprinkling of American citizens, that there aren't people coming in that are just people wanting to get out of Afghanistan but weren't part and parcel of our military effort. I mean, we can't control the border. We don't control anything. I mean, do you remember, Dick, and the problem hadn't gone away, visa overstays under Obama? Hundreds of thousands of people granted visas, and when the visas expired, the Obama administration conveniently couldn't tell you where they were in the country.
Yep. And that was work visas, student visas, the works. And you know, with that, we're out of time, so we're going to have to continue this next week.
Well, that's okay, because I'm exhausted and out of patience.
Okey doke.
Take care, Dick.
Okay.